It's time now for weather with Nebraska Extension ag climatologist and Market Journal chief meteorologist Al Dutcher. Al, I thought the first part of this week was gorgeous. It felt so nice out there. It has been getting cooler over the past few days, though, with some of our overnight lows near freezing. So let us know, how's the first full week of November shaping up?
Well, Troy, it has been a fairly decent week in terms of harvest activity. We did have some slight delays during the midweek period, but overall we've seen some pretty significant gains in terms of harvest activity across the state, with soybean harvest going above the 75% mark as we got into the Sunday release, which basically came out Monday. And corn, we've basically made it up to 50% harvestable acres, and with the week that we've had, I suspect that a vast majority of the soybeans have been harvested or are very, very close, and we're probably going to jump above 60% in terms of corn harvest as we go into next week, although it does look like things might get a little bit more interesting over this next 7-day period. So as we go to the upper air charts, first thing I'll draw your attention to is we've seen that cold air come into the region over the last 24 hours, really intensified with the cooler temperatures, but the big trough digging in the upper atmosphere that will make its way toward the east. And we do have surface low pressure down in the Texas Big Bend region, and that's going to funnel some moisture up, but it doesn't look like we're going to see a tremendous volume of precipitation, with the best of it central Nebraska through northeast Nebraska, and maybe even some light snow mixed in with that. And this trough kind of gets a little bit more diffuse before it starts to energize. That low moves over into eastern Texas, and we have two lows in the western Dakotas at the surface. But because these lows right down along the Gulf Coast will rob the moisture moving northward, and so the only thing we'll see is a little bit of wraparound in northeast Nebraska. And then the primary focus is this trough as we go into Monday. That big low pressure system will cut off all moisture moving to the north. Cool high pressure will remain in place across the northern plains. We'll see a little bit of light snow across the Rockies, but heavy precipitation all the way from the Gulf Coast up into the central Corn Belt. And then that trough starts to pivot toward the northeast as we go into the day on Tuesday, with high pressure firmly in control in the high plains. Even though there's a low pressure showing up in the Texas Panhandle, it doesn't have any moisture to feed with. That'll be all directed toward the east, and a little bit of moisture in the Pacific Northwest. Now as we get into Wednesday, we see that trough reinforced somewhat. Another shot of cool air comes into our region, so the well below normal temperatures will continue, but dry weather along with it. Most of the precip stays along the eastern seaboard, still seeing a little scattering of moisture in the Rocky Mountains, and there is just one little bit of precip that might move through southern Nebraska, and then the warm air starts to return in earnest. As high pressure starts to slide eastward, we'll get on the back side of it, start to see some warmer southerly southwesterly winds, and you'll notice a precipitation-free pattern across the vast majority of the United States. By the time we get to Friday, we start to see that trough lift out and a more of a zonal flow. Downsloping should be real nice weather, even though we do show some low pressure systems developing along the high plains regions of Nebraska and in Kansas. There's just no moisture to feed with it. With that rapidly moving system, moisture is just not going to get up here soon enough to create any potential problems within the central Corn Belt. Pay attention to this mass of moisture moving into the Pacific Northwest. That's the next major system that is expected to move down into the central Rocky Mountains and then start to swing and pivot across the southern plains, with some hints that will start to swing toward the Great Lakes region sometime between the 10th and the 12th. Might be our next chance for any measurable snowfall across the central United States. In terms of the 8 to 14-day forecast, certainly with that cool high pressure in place and waning as it gets toward the end of the week, we will still see some slight cooler than normal conditions from next Thursday to the following Tuesday. And in terms of precipitation, starting to pick up that system coming out of the southwest that will be moving into our region late in the next 10-day period.